In pretty much every generation of Pokémon, each game always had specific groups of Pokémon that fit into certain categories. Obviously, the most popular ones are the starters, which have to be 3-stage Pokémon with either grass, fire, or water typing in every stage, with a few exceptions to the rule like Pikachu and Eevee. But then you also have Route 1 or early game Pokémon, which is actually the topic of today's video, on my series about making an entire Pokémon region based on Ben 10. Now, what exactly classifies as a Route 1 Pokémon? Well, other than being found on the first route of the region, Route 1 Pokémon can be split into 3 specific groups. The regional bug type, which can be either a 2 or 3 stage Pokémon of the bug typing, the regional bird being the same thing, just swap out bugs for birds and add the flying type, and the regional rodent, or more accurately the regional mammal, a 2-stage normal type Pokémon always based on some kind of mammal, most commonly some kind of rodent, but made especially clear in the last generation that it's not always the case. Then we have the 2 other category of Pokémon which, even though aren't considered Route 1 Pokémon, they're still mostly found in the early game, those being the regional dog Pokémon like Growlithe and Lillipup, and the Pikachu clones like Togedemaru and Pachirisu. I think that basically covers everything we're gonna go through in this video, so let's start off with the region's bug type. Slugabug, name being a mix of slug and bug. This bug poison type Pokémon is based on Stingfly, the perfect option for regional bug. Not only is Stingfly a popular alien since he's one of the original 10, but we also have seen different versions of him that would fit into the typical stages of a bug type Pokémon. The Stingfly worm hybrids in the episodes Dr. Anemo and the Mutant Ray being a perfect inspiration for the larva stage that Slugabug represents. I just gave him a more segmented body like most worm Pokémon, removed the extra weird eye in the center of his head and added some pupils to make him more emotive. Slugabug, the worm Pokémon. These wriggly Pokémon use their 2 sets of eyes to keep a lookout for predators while also using their other set to hunt for food. Their preferred food consists of smaller bug types. Since I decided on making the Slugabug line a 3-stage Pokémon, I wanted to make a sort of cocoon-like middle stage, leading to the creation of Magross. Magross, being a mix of maggot and gross, is a chunky maggot-like Pokémon with a pair of tiny useless wings that is in an almost sleep-like state, waiting to burst out from his own exoskeleton into his final stage. Mostly inspired by Max's Stingfly hybrid form in the same episode as the Stingfly worms, since he could barely move or show any sign of life, so I just used that same concept to represent the part in a larvae's life where they have eaten enough to slow down and prepare to go into their final stage. Magross, the maggot Pokémon. After eating enough, Slugabugs evolve into Magross and go into a comatose-like state. Even though they look asleep, they're actually fully awake and aware of their surroundings, but can't be bothered to react to anything. Bursting out of its exoskeleton, the once slow-moving Magross becomes Stingfly. Name being the same as Stingfly's, just with a bigger focus on the stinger since the Pokémon is a fast-flying, aggressive predator, with some hornet inspiration added in the face shape and the striped tail, along with a false pair of eyes for intimidation where the Omnitrix usually is, since apparently I wasn't alone in confusing it as being Stingfly's actual eye as a kid. Don't ask me why, I can't explain it other than it's cause it's on the center of his face. Stingfly, the Scorpionfly Pokémon. These Pokémon are extremely territorial and will instantly attack any other Stingfly that enters its section of the forest. Trainers will almost never find 2 Stingflies in the same route. Now, I might have done something that I feel could be considered controversial for the regional bird. So out of all of Ben's aliens, the only real bird-like aliens are Kickenhawk and Astrodactyl, one of them not being able to fly and the other being more based on a pterodactyl. So spoiler alert, I'm saving it for a fossil Pokémon. So what else can I do? Well, come on, I can't be the only one that thought Jetray was some kind of owl. Horned owl like crest, yellow lips looking like a beak and... well, I guess that's kind of all there is. But that's the best option I got, so we're going for it. Chirpi, being both a cute babyish way to say chirp, and also having the first 2 letters of pilot. It's a tiny owlet fighter pilot with goggles and a vest included. Obviously I had to change some details to make him more bird-like, such as removing his teeth, giving him actual wings, and adding feathers to his tail. I think it's a perfect mix, but let me know if you think I could have done something better. Chirpi, the pilot Pokémon. Chirpies look up to the stars, dreaming to one day fly high enough to reach them. You will never find a more determined Pokémon in the region. With enough training, our little fighter pilot becomes a full-on streamlined aircraft as Jetleg. Mix of jet, also the beginning of jet ray, jet lag being the condition in where someone gets tired after flying across different time zones, and leg because of the sharp talons in Jetleg's legs. Also cause owls have way longer legs than they look and I thought that was funny. Jetleg now gains the psychic typing, not only because of how owls are usually connected with high intelligence and mystic arts, but also because of Jetray's connection to space itself, being able to fly and breathe perfectly fine in the void of space, like a living spacecraft. laser beams included. And it's a pretty common thing for Game Freak to give psychic typing to Pokemon that are clearly aliens. Even Pokemon who aren't psychic types but are established to be aliens learn some space-themed psychic moves. Also gives me an excuse to give Jetleg a magenta color instead of red so that the color scheme doesn't clash with Talonflame's. Jetleg, the Jet Pokemon. Jetlegs use their psychic abilities to be able to fly through the sky without needing to flap their wings. Because of this, their prey never hear them coming. For our final stage, Jetleg evolves from being a jet into a full-on spaceship. Astrowl, being a mix of Astro and Owl, now has a large crest covering his face, like a sort of crown worn by an alien overlord, along with those lightning-like patterns on Jetray's design that now connect to form a fake crooked mouth for intimidation, while also looking like a sort of collar worn by alien royalty, meaning Astrowl is both an alien emperor and the battleship he commands to conquer worlds. Astrowl, the Space Owl Pokemon. Unlike most Pokemon, Astrowls prefer the comfort of space, only ever coming back down to the atmosphere to feed and taking a breath which they can hold for days on end. The last true category for the Route 1 Pokemon is the regional mammal, which I decided to base on Molestache. I know I didn't need to use a rodent alien for this category, but hey, I'm a sucker for the classics. Plus he fits too well for the normal type regional rat, which is why I made Whiskrat. Mix of whisker and rat. This British gentleman looking mole rat is pretty ugly. But intentionally, since, well, you've all seen what mole rats look like, right?
Afraid to look ugliness in the face? Well, here! Look at it! It's ugly, isn't it? You look at it!
Hello.
Just gave them more cartoony features and added a distinguished mustache to act as their whiskers, and we have our mustache-based Pokemon. Whiskrat, the mole Pokemon. Whiskrats use their extremely sensitive mustache-like whiskers to navigate around the region in the dead of night when they're known to be the most active in order to hide from predators. Once he evolves, Whiskrat's mustache now grows bigger and more prehensile for fighting opponents as Luchamole, mix of Luchadora and Mole. Luchamole is a mix between a fighting Mexican luchador and a stereotypical mustachioed strongman, unitard and all, using only his mustache for battles since his real arms are weak in comparison. Luchamole, the mustache Pokemon. Masters of wrestling and boxing, Luchamole are used by multiple professional fighters for training. Their prehensile mustache is strong enough to even lift a large car over its head. Now that we've finished the real Route 1 Pokemon, let's look at the other two groups of regional Pokemon that technically fit as an early game Pokemon. Not really all the time, but I'm gonna count it either way. The regional dogs are canine or canine-like Pokemon that usually have two evolutionary stages, with a few exceptions. And what better alien to fit this role than everyone's favorite wild blind pup, Wildmutt, which I have used as my main inspiration to make Smellipup. Both smell and smelly because of its amazing sense of smell, and also the fact that it itself smells like the stereotypical slobbering dog, and also pup since it's mostly based on the baby Wildmutt from the Fountain of Youth episode, just with some more dog-like features like the little tail and the nose in order to really emphasize its sense of smell. Smellipup, the blind puppy Pokemon. Because of Smellipup's heightened sense of smell, they have evolved past the need for eyes, since they can sense their surroundings by just the use of their incredible nose. From a slobbering playful puppy, Scenthound is a vicious hunting dog with one of the most efficient noses in all of Pokemon. Name being just a mix of Scent and Hound, this Pokemon has a slightly slimmer, more canine-like body in order to look more like a traditional hunting dog, like a pointer, but then also gains some details from adult Vulpamancers, such as the long tail, striped patterns, and even the little wrinkles around its mouth. Scenthound, the hunting dog Pokemon. Trainers who aren't prepared to handle Scenthound's primal need to hunt and battle will have a difficult time training this Pokemon. They are best suited for experienced trainers with a love for adventure. Now lastly, for the Pikachu clone, a viewer actually had the idea for me to make a Cannonbolt inspired Pokemon, which I really like. But I wanted to keep the typings of the Pokemon similar to what I would think the aliens themselves would have. So why not make a clone of the iconic electric mascot based on Omniverse's iconic electric mascot, Feedback, which is what led me to create Kebaneru, a mix of the Japanese words for cable and to hop. Since Pikachu and all the other Pikachu clones keep their original Japanese names, I gave Kebaneru the same treatment. Design-wise, Kebaneru is a jackrabbit with long ears with plugs at the end like Feedback's wires, and used the bolt-like parts on Feedback's body as Pikachu cheeks. Kebaneru, the cable Pokemon. Kebanerus gain most of their electric abilities by absorbing electricity from either power sockets or other electric-type Pokemon with the use of their elastic cable-like ears. And there we have the early game Pokemon for my Ben 10 themed Pokemon region. If you like this video and have any ideas for future designs, don't be scared to leave them in the comments below. And if I like it enough, I'll sketch it out and feature you on the next video. Hopefully by next month I'll manage to make a Halloween special, and then after that I'll start working on the next creating my own alien video. And if you missed the last one on Overgrowth, be sure to check it out, I'm sure you'll like it too.